What's up? Hey, hello, everyone. Wow. So today we are back going to be talking about Survivor Season 40 Winners at War, Episode 10. And what a doozy. So my name is Rachel.
And I'm Alyssa, and episode 10, I feel like this was one of the more confusing episodes of Survivor, just because I don't know how anything happened the way it happened, and that is because the editing this season sucks. Just,
Literally, yes. The last 30 minutes of this episode made me so angry. And then I literally spent 2 hours after the episode just confused. And I don't know. The show has given me anxiety because there was just so much happening and it was too fast paced and not swallowable for viewers to watch. Apparently, a lot of things were left out because the vote was very, very confusing.
yeah, and I think it's especially confusing because the editing, especially for this episode, contradicts itself so much. Like,
Yeah, like,
Jeremy gives his whole speech about how he's a firefighter and firefighters don't leave his people behind. And then he goes and leaves his people behind. Just like,
yeah. There was just so many questions going into tribal council. Like, how did this 5-5 form and be close enough that they are all sharing their advantage information? And leading into tribal, multiple people do mention that it is going to be a 5-5 split. So it seems that suddenly after the Adam vote out, we have two solid groups of five, at least for this vote. Personally, I don't think it's going to be like a pagonging for the rest of the season. And this was like a one-time 5-5 vote. Another question, how did Nick and Michele end up on opposite sides of the 5-5 vote split? Potentially, we don't see that actually play out in tribal council, but throughout the episode, we do see that Nick is included in the Tony side and Michele's name is brought up with the Kim side. So a lot of questions there. Like, I don't know. I feel like we didn't see a lot of the strategy information in the episode, and we really only see the Sophie, Sarah, Tony trio, and then the Poker Alliance trio talking, and then everyone else is just like there.
yeah, and I think it's also like this episode hurt a lot of people's winner chances because we saw so few people talking. And it's like this was a pretty big vote, and if you didn't get any screen time at all this vote, then it probably means your chances of being a winner went way, way down. But in
Yeah.
addition to not having alliance information, I feel like we didn't have the full like vote information. And there's this conspiracy theory, right? That, well, I'm not even sure to call it a conspiracy theory. There's a theory that after Sarah placed her steal a vote, it was 6-3, right? And so the idea is the majority alliance splits its vote 3-3, and then it's a 3-3-3 tie, forcing a revote. And then and that's how Tyson gets voted out on the revote. And what we saw is just like clever editing, splicing together the two different votes. But like,
See, now this is the theory that low key I believe, and I think we'll never know for sure if there was actually two votes this tribal council and then one vote, or the two votes were edited to make it look like a one vote tribal council because they aren't going to tell us that there were two votes. And I guess the only way to confirm or deny would be after exit press when everyone is off the island, technically, since they aren't doing exit press right now because people are on edge of extinction. But when Alyssa and I walk through this vote, I honestly think that a vote and a revote could have happened. And because we didn't see any inclination this episode from Michele, were her and Nick faking being on opposite sides and they were actually double agents? Was Michele just flipping at tribal council for the sake of flipping and trying to save Grace and not vote for Sophie because she knows Tyson is probably going home? Because we never heard one confessional from Michele, I really find it difficult to believe that the Majority Alliance knew that Michele was with them, or that Michele was even with the Majority Alliance at all. So I think that makes the vote way more complicated when we talk through each step of the vote, because the vote split that we actually saw on TV, if it was really a 5-2-2, makes no sense with the information that we are given from the episode. And sure, maybe Michele was in on the plan the whole time, but how come we didn't see that on the edit? Because I feel like if Michele was, and she is such a pivotal person in this vote to make the vote split work correctly with the Majority Alliance, like, how come not one confessional was said? And that's what really, really annoys me. And that's why I sort of lean towards the idea that it was a vote, a 3-3-3 split, and then there was a revote, and then we got a mixture with the editing of the vote and the revote, and that's why we saw such a weird 5-2-2.
Yeah, and I think also one of the things that makes this tribal frustrating is so many of these tribals, they've done like whispering sessions, basically the entire tribal. And it's like, maybe it's cool to watch like once or twice, but when it becomes every episode and you can't tell who's going home because all of a sudden the plans are changing at tribal, that's annoying. Especially because they can caption the whispers. Like you see people caption the whispers in whenever they think it's like important. And so it's like they know what everyone is whispering about. And so it's like, I feel like it's fine if they keep doing the whispering thing at tribal council, but like we need to know what's whispering so that like we as a viewer aren't constantly blindsided. Because I feel like part of the fun of watching Survivor is kind of being able to guess who's going home.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Like, the fun of Survivor is putting the puzzle pieces together, trying to figure out, seeing what were people's logic, why did people vote this way and not that way. But I agree, whispers need to stop at tribal council. Everyone is mic'd up. Why are there no subtitles? Why did no camera person, or why weren't we shown maybe what the five were saying when Sophie pulled them off to the side? Or was that editing and there was a five, and then maybe Michele was brought into that five to make it a six, but it wasn't shown? But I'm like, if it's such a pivotal part, why is it not shown on the episode so that viewers can put the puzzle pieces together and make that distinction? And it's like, we go into tribal council, 5 people have advantages, and we have a steal a vote advantage, and there's just no information before tribal council. Every single name was pretty much thrown out there. Jeff asks literally 2 questions, and then he's like, okay, time to vote. And then everyone starts whispering, and we're like, okay, this is not helpful at all, especially when Jeff's question was to Nick. And I'm like, this is not helpful.
Yeah, and then also like the whole posturing thing with the advantage, where neither of them wanted to play the advantage first. Like, we could have spent the 2 minutes that were spent on Jeremy and Sarah not wanting to play their advantages first on actually learning something about what is going on. Just because I feel like I never even thought that Tyson was a possibility. Like, I was really confused that Tyson went home because until his name was read, I was like, oh, we're actually serious about voting for Tyson, you know? So it's
Yeah,
like,
it honestly felt like maybe he was third or second on the totem pole, but we really don't know with any of the information that was going around. I would say that the Jeremy, Sarah trying to figure out who's going first, who's going second was an interesting scene, because I think in this situation, you do want to be the person that goes second, because then you have complete information, versus if you are Jeremy, maybe if he went second, like, he wouldn't have left tribal council, or maybe that would make him want to leave tribal council more, because he knew that his 5-person alliance was already at a downfall and at a vote disadvantage. But because Jeremy goes first, he doesn't get to see what Sarah's doing. And so I think good for Sarah on sticking it out and like not going first. But yeah, I don't know. So if we start to go into the actual hecticness of tribal council, we see Jeremy play his advantage. So Jeremy, he's like peacing out of tribal council. So then it becomes a 5-4 vote. And this is what we're starting at. So it is a 5-4 vote right now. We are thinking, because we go into tribal thinking, it's a 5-5 vote, which may have not even been true. Maybe Michele was always with the majority, but who knows? We think it's a 5-4. And a lot of people on the internet are debating over whether Jeremy leaving was a good or a bad move. For me personally, I could see both sides of it. It's a good move. It makes sense because Jeremy probably was the person on the chopping block to go home last night based on what we saw. And 3 more days could be super valuable in the game. You might as well save yourself. You know, this alliance, your 5-person alliance, it's not going to last forever, especially in modern day Survivor. We have not seen these big alliances make it to the end, really. And especially Winners at War, this alliance is probably not going to last. So, you know, might as well save yourself. It's the last night Jeremy could have played the advantage, so might as well use it and not make it go to waste. But I would say that Jeremy leaving first and not making Sarah go first, so Sarah plays her advantage, so you have more complete information, sort of does screw over his people because Jeremy didn't know the vote steal was going to happen. And so technically it's a 5-5. And then with the steal a vote, if Jeremy stayed first, it would be a 6-4. But then the majority of 6 couldn't split the votes like they did. And then maybe you could play the idol correctly. And then it would have worked out for the Kim, Jeremy, Michele, and Tyson alliance. That is if Michele is on board, which we have no idea. But I think like if Jeremy did stay and Sarah went first, Kim could have played her idol correctly because the 6 couldn't split their votes.
I think one of the things I'm confused about though was Jeremy actually legitimately on the chopping block, or were we as viewers just made to think that Jeremy was on the chopping block, so we hated him less when he decided to play his safety without power advantage? Because it feels like so much of the episode was devoted to being like, oh, Jeremy might be on the chopping block, only to have him play his safety without power. And I'm like, with the amount of names that got thrown around, I feel like you could have edited it to make it seem like anybody was going home, basically. And so I feel like maybe it was well edited in the sense that, like, oh, they made us feel for Jeremy. So, like, I don't know. I'm still not pleased with Jeremy's decision because it did screw over his alliance so badly, and it especially contradicted what he said earlier about being a firefighter, blah blah blah. We don't leave our people. But it's like it was kind of like an editing red herring in the sense of like, oh, we're gonna make you think that Jeremy is going home so that then when he plays his safety without power, you're not mad at him. But then you don't actually know who is actually going home because they devoted so much time in the edit to building up Jeremy as the person who's going home. And then also the family visit. Like, this was one of the worst votes to have after a family visit because the family visit takes up so much of the time, especially this particular one. So
yes, multiple points that I want to talk about that you just said. I was thinking about it also with the family visit in such a hectic tribal council. I know like they can't change episodes kind of thing, but like Australian Survivor does a lot of episodes where no person actually gets voted out of the tribe, which personally I find it a waste of my time, and I don't really like those advantages or the twists at tribal council where no one gets voted out. But I think in this case, honestly, I personally would be okay with seeing a whole 42-minute episode of the family visit and just going more in depth into those full circle relationships, or maybe talking more with the people who had loved ones who were past Survivor players would have been super interesting. And then just keeping this whole vote as a separate episode. And that's difficult because Survivor is allotted like 14, 15 episodes. You can't really change that. But I think there's just the editing and the timing of this episode was just not good. And then your other point about the red herring, I think that's a really interesting argument because, yeah, we definitely saw a lot of conflicting things during the episode, but we did see like we saw Jeremy wanting to split the vote on Sarah and Sophie. So Sarah and Sophie's names were potentially on the chopping block. But then we see Sarah wanting to vote Kim, but then Tony wanted to vote Jeremy. So it did seem maybe like Tony won and then Jeremy was the vote. But yeah, we really don't know. So it could be the fact that CBS wanted to have a saving grace for Jeremy. Like, oh, even though technically, if you do think about it, if Jeremy stayed, they could have had the four of their five-some could have won if they split if Kim played the idol correctly because the majority couldn't split the votes, and if Michele is actually with her five-some and not with the Tony five-some. So he doesn't look like such a bad person on the internet. But I feel like if Jeremy really was the target of the other group, why not promise Jeremy the idol and then you make Jeremy stay there and then he's still safe and he doesn't have to use his advantage? Because either way, if he uses his advantage or if he gets the idol from Kim, he would have been safe. And then you wouldn't be down a number before Sarah does the vote steal.
The real baller move would have been to convince someone on the other side that they were definitely going to go home, give them the safety without power advantage, and get them to leave. And then Sarah would still use steal a vote, but it would still be harder they wouldn't be able to split the vote. And so, yeah.
Yeah, it's just because Jeremy left that it made the split the vote work better, because then the majority could split the votes in the case that Kim plays the idol, and Sophie knows Kim has the idol, so yeah, I don't know.
Also, you named all of the names that were being seriously thrown around, which were Sarah, Sophie, Jeremy, and then who was the last one? Kim.
Tyson, briefly. Kim. Yeah, Kim.
And neither Denise nor Tyson, the two people who got votes from the majority alliance, were mentioned. And it's like, I'm just frustrated because it's like, I want to have an idea of who is going home. And when neither of their names were even like mentioned, like maybe I'm just dumb and totally missed it both times I watched the episode, but like I didn't. So, and then that leads to the question of why did Kim play the idol for Denise?
Yeah, I think going back really quickly, with Jeremy leaving tribal council, I would want to know if this affects his winner chances. I think maybe in the long run, no, because you can justify it like he's playing for his family. He's not playing for the 5 people in his alliance, even though low-key he did screw them over by leaving. It is justified to get 3 more days in the game if Jeremy does make it to final tribal council. But on the other hand, I feel like if I were Tyson, I would be so salty that some dude left tribal council, especially in the secret scene. Jeremy does say that Tyson is his right-hand person, the person that he trusts the most out there. And I feel like Tyson could have a lot of sway on the jury, considering like all of his friends are out there. Now he's on edge again, and he can bond with them for the next however many days are left on the island. And it seemed like the jury didn't like it when Jeremy did leave tribal council. We see Wendell say, oh, yo, he left his squad. So,
and that was captioned.
Yeah.
So you know it's important. So, and then on in the scene where Tyson returns to Edge of Extinction, everyone is like, man, we were totally rooting for you. We wanted you to do well, blah, blah. And then Mans got voted out. So I feel like Tyson, like, he definitely could sway some jurors away from voting for Jeremy. And I feel like Jeremy, when he learns what happens, is going to probably be beating himself up for the decision he made.
And yeah, I think Jeremy could be saved because tribal was so hectic after he left that maybe people forgot and they aren't thinking the numbers through, that like if Jeremy stayed, they could have played the idol correctly. And maybe Michele doesn't flip if Jeremy does stay. Maybe the only reason Michele flipped was because Jeremy left tribal council, and we've never really seen her ever talk to Tyson, Kim, or Denise. It seemed like Michele's only into the Poker Alliance was through Jeremy. So a lot of different ripple effects could have changed if Jeremy did stay. And I would want to know if Tyson is salty enough to bring that up at final tribal council if Jeremy does make it. But also, I don't maybe see these people as the type of person to be that salty because you are playing for your family and they just had the family visit and everyone just saw Jeremy's 4 kids out there. Like, I don't think you can hold it against them in the long run, but I think next time when you first get back after tribal council, people in Jeremy's alliance are going to be initially salty. Like, if you were Kim, Denise, maybe Michele, who knows, I think you would be salty when you go back to camp tonight.
I feel like everyone in the minority alliance is going to be salty because it's like you don't leave your people behind. So
yeah, so Jeremy leaves tribal council. He pieces out, and then whispers happen again. And I'm like, okay, Jeff already said, "Are y'all ready? It's time to vote." Jeremy stands up. He leaves. It's still Jeff's turn, and then Sarah says, but then before even Sarah says she wants to play her advantage, people start scrambling again and whispering. And I feel like I have a problem with that because Jeff already said, okay, it's time to vote. And usually when people are going to vote, you're not allowed to talk. So I think it just seems backwards that they were allowed to re-strategize right after Jeremy left because Jeff already said it's time to vote. You should have been quiet.
Yeah. It seems like sometimes Jeff does stuff because it's dramatic instead of because it's like actually the rules of the television. And since he's a producer, he's kind of allowed to do that, but like
yeah, like I get it's good TV. Okay, yeah, people are scrambling, but I would have liked to see what the vote would have been if people couldn't re-scramble after Jeremy left, because Ben did say, and this was also captioned on the TV show, oh, what do we do now? So it didn't seem that people had the backup plan to the backup plan of knowing if Jeremy left or not. And so I think that changes a lot. So we see scrambling happen, and then we also see Sarah play her steal a vote advantage. So then with the information that we have, it seems like it's going to be a 6 versus 3 vote. The 5 in the majority plus Sarah steals Denise's vote to make it 6 versus the 3 in the minority because Denise doesn't have a vote. So it's 6 versus 3. And Alyssa and I were texting during the episode like, oh, it's going to be a 3-3-3 split. That would be so smart for the majority. You have the numbers with the extra vote steal to make it a 3-3-3 split. So even if Sophie knows Kim has an idol, Kim is playing this idol, you still have a 3-3 revote because if Kim plays the idol on Denise, then the revote is still between Sophie and Tyson, and you still have your way as the majority alliance.
Yeah. I just like numbers. They confuse me. But so we gave our whole conspiracy theory about a main vote being edited out. Regardless of how it happens, Tyson goes home. And do you think this was a smart decision?
I mean, I think it was an interesting decision. I think, do we want to talk about Kim playing the idol for Denise first?
Sure. I have no idea how that happened, but like YOLO.
See, even Alyssa and I are so confused talking about this. Goes to show the editing was just off. Like, playing the idol for Denise, it makes sense. Because Sophie knows that Kim has an idol, so if you're bluffing, you wouldn't put the votes on Kim and you would put the votes on someone else because Kim would probably play the idol for for herself. But just the question that why would Kim play her idol in the first place was questionable, because if you're there, you're probably thinking it's going to be a 3-3-3 split. So why are you playing the idol at all? Because even if she does play the idol for Denise in a 3-3-3 split, Tyson is still going home. So I feel like I was just confused as why Kim would even play the idol in the first place, thinking that it's going to be a 3-3-3. And I feel like that's the most logical vote split that you would think. You don't think it would be something weird like the 4-3-2 or something. I don't know. I just seemed weird to play the idol.
It seemed weird to play the idol. It seemed weird to play the idol for Denise. And when Tyson was voted out, Kim even says, "Oh, I was going to do that." Like she was about to play the idol for Tyson and then didn't. And so it's really weird that we as an audience don't know what's happening, but Kim was able to narrow down which two people were likely to go home. And then, like, I also feel like with idols, there's a level of paranoia where it's like you don't want to play the idol for someone else and then be the one to go home. So I feel like people are always more likely to play the idol for themselves. And so it's like, how was Kim so confident that she was not going home when she's the only one from that alliance whose name we heard?
Yeah, so it seems weird that if you're going to play the idol at all, why, if you're not going to play it for yourself, why play it at all? I think would be my question, because if you think you're safe and Kim thought she was safe, you are going to burn the idol on someone else because you think you're safe enough. But it's going to be a vote split where if you're thinking a 3-3-3, someone in your alliance still goes home. So it didn't really make sense to play the idol. And I think playing it on Denise, I guess we see that Denise and Kim have a relationship from their swapped tribe earlier. But I think it would have been smarter to save Tyson, because Tyson would have been a bigger meat shield for Kim. Tyson would always, I feel like, be the person that people would want to vote out. I think Denise has sort of fallen back into the background. Even after the Sandra vote, people were like, OMG, she's doing so well, we need to vote her out. But I think, what kind of shield is Denise giving Kim versus Tyson giving Kim?
Yeah, and then it's also strange because, like, wasn't it literally last episode that Tony said the reason for voting Tyson out was no longer valid? Or was that 2 episodes ago?
Yeah, the merged tribe.
Yeah. Either way, very recently, someone said, like, we're not going to vote Tyson out because our reason for voting him out is no longer a reason. And so it's like, Tyson hasn't been shown that much since then. And it's like, what reason suddenly appeared in 6 days where he's suddenly now your top choice to be voted out?
He just wrong place at the wrong time after Jeremy left. Like, I don't think, even rewatching the episode, we don't really hear a lot of reasoning as to vote Tyson out, because all of the focus was on Sarah versus Tony's argument about wanting to vote either Kim or Jeremy out. And so if you're going down the totem pole, maybe Tyson was like the third or fourth person on there. You're not going to vote Michele out, because a lot of the people are probably thinking they want to take Michele to the end. Same with Nick. You're not voting them two out. So Tyson just got effed over because he was the next person in line after like 3 people in front of him were safe. Which is sad. It was sad to see the first time. It was very sad to see the second time. Even worse, honestly. And to see it be a 5-2-2 split on the episode with no inclination that Michele was going to flip. She was even talking with the other group. We know she's close with Nick. We don't see Nick or Michele talking. We don't see Nick telling Michele the plan. We don't know that the majority of Tony's group knows that Michele is flipping. So a 5-2-2 split makes 0 sense, I think. Why would you split 4-3-2 without Michele's vote? Because you don't, if they didn't know Michele was voting 100%, why are you splitting 4-3-2? Because with Michele's vote, it makes it a 5-2-2. But 4-3-2 means that if Kim did play the idol correctly, then Sophie would have went home. So is this just like sloppy editing on the account of the producers, that they aren't editing the show to show that Michele was actually going to flip? Is this sloppiness on the part of all of the winners? But it just doesn't seem that feasible that all of these winners who have won the game can do such a blunder of making a 4-3-2 split where if Kim plays the idol correctly, your side loses. It just doesn't make sense that it would be a 5-2-2 unless they just did a sloppy vote or the editing was incorrect, or conspiracy theory like Alyssa and I said, there was a vote 3-3-3 and a revote, which I think is the most likely, because a 5-2-2 makes zero sense based off of what we saw.
Yeah. And like, we didn't even see the potential for Michele to flip, let alone the guarantee she would. And so this whole vote was just very confusing, very not good. So, and then like, I'm upset that Tyson went home again, just because like, well, not home. I'm sad he went to Edge again, because he just like, I want him to win so badly. Like, I don't know when.
My winner pick.
I don't know when I felt it in my soul that I needed Tyson to win, but like, now I'm on board the like Tyson must win train.
So. Yeah, and like Alyssa brought up earlier, I think voting Tyson out now was bad, and maybe it's just because Jeremy was safe, Denise was safe, Kim was potentially safe, they're not voting Michele, Tyson was just the next person to go. But I think voting Tyson out now, it's still early in the game. 9 people left. You're sending Tyson to the edge early enough that he can do the exact same thing we just saw him do and win fire tokens and then win his way back into the game. So I think if you are thinking it would have been smarter to vote him out later, like right before the edge challenge, so then he doesn't have the opportunity to find fire tokens, get peanut butter, win the next edge challenge. I don't know. I just think voting him out this early makes it so that he has enough chance to win his way back into the game. And we saw he could do it the first time. If I were on the island, I feel like I would be low-key scared that he could do it again. But maybe it was just the majority alliance had no one else to vote for, so they had to vote Tyson. But it just seems too early to vote Tyson out.
Yeah. And like, Tyson even says that in the like deleted scene of him going back to the edge, he's just like, I just need to get peanut butter again. And so, yeah. And honestly, I think if Tyson can win his way back to the game, he can win this game. Because he has the goodwill of literally everyone on the jury. There is no better story than I won my way back, not once, but twice. And just like, I want him to win, so he must.
I think I'm a little iffy on if someone can get voted out twice and go to the edge of extinction and win their way back twice, if they can still win the game based off of a game integrity standpoint. Like, I would be so freaking hype if Tyson could Underwood his way back in and then win the game. Tyson's Instagram after he was voted out even said plan C is to Underwood his way to the end. I would be so freaking for it. I think Tyson does have a lot of friends on the edge that would vote for him. And if his last 6 days in the game are as flashy and as ballsy as Chris Underwood, maybe. But if the winners are thinking on a more what Survivor is as a game standpoint, then I feel like Tyson's chances of winning, if he does get to the end, are a little bit harder, because I don't know. I would feel like I would have the problem that if someone was voted out twice, how can you give them the title of sole survivor because they were voted out twice, versus the 2 people that he's sitting next to were people who made it to the end without ever getting voted out. They had to do the strategy. They couldn't just canoodle with everyone on the edge of extinction. So I would wonder if the people on the jury would think that way, or if they're thinking like, oh, I like Tyson. Tyson's my friend. I would vote for him. Or are they thinking game integrity standpoint?
But I mean, also, if Tyson sits next to two goats, like if he sits next to like Nick and I don't know who else is a goat. I don't know. If he sits next to Nick, like, can they really say that Nick is a better player than Tyson just because he didn't get voted out? Because I feel like after a certain point in the game, you get voted out or you get kept because people know they can win against you, not because you're a good player.
Yeah, I agree. I think it really depends on what the jury views the people as, because it doesn't seem like Ben has a lot of respect on the jury. Like even last week when we saw the whole Ben Adam blow up at tribal council, the jury members were laughing at Ben. It doesn't maybe seem that Nick or Michele have a lot of respect on the jury. So even if people, I feel like Adam would be someone that would be so gung ho game integrity that even if you're sitting next to maybe two people that don't have a lot of respect from the jury, maybe you would vote the person that was voted out twice out of the game as the winner because you just don't respect the other two, and that could be a possibility. But I think if Tyson is sitting with someone else like Kim or Denise or anyone who does have respect on the jury, then I think it would be an uphill battle because I don't know, just getting voted out of the game, it shows that you weren't necessarily playing the best game that you could be. And I think for this vote, at least, Tyson, there wasn't really much that he could do because it was just circumstance and a lot of things got effed up at tribal council and the editing was just really weird. So maybe people give him a break for that because it was such a crazy tribal council. But I don't know. I just think in a regular season, the game is to outwit, outlast, outplay, and to be voted out, I think definitely goes directly against the three pillars of Survivor. So it would be interesting, like, do the winners care about that or do they not? And I don't think that's something we can answer, but that's something that we'll have to see. But it'll be so interesting.
Yeah, I think another thing to mention though is a part of Survivor is playing the game as it is given to you.
Yep.
And if the mechanism of the game is that you get to come back into the game if you win a challenge, like that is the game as it is
Yep.
given to you. Like some of these players aren't used to playing with idols and other crazy advantages. And so it's like, how can I say, like, oh, you can win the game because you played flashy moves like idols, but you can't win the game because you used a mechanism of the game, which is coming back from Edge, and won because of that, you know? Like it would seem almost hypocritical to me if they were like, you can't win because you came back from the Edge.
No,
Because
yeah,
it's
I 100% agree. You know, you have to deal with the cards that are dealt. And this season, the cards that are dealt is the Edge of Extinction. So to say that the person who gets voted out and comes back from Edge has like 0% chance of winning, then what's the point of even having Edge of Extinction, right? Because if it's part of the game and that's something that you have to work with and play with, if the people who do get voted out have 0 chance and everyone says that they're never going to vote for that person, but like, I guess, yeah, you know, you can also say that it's not the fault. It is the person's fault that they got voted out necessarily, but it's not their fault that they used the game and they used the Edge of Extinction to get them to the end of the game. And I think it's how maybe you phrase that at Final Tribal Council that you'll get the respect from the jury and like what your thought process was behind it.
yeah, like I think definitely having a good jury performance can be the difference between whether or not you win the game. So,
So I guess we are up in the air about Tyson winning or not. It really depends on what these jury members think and who Tyson could be sitting next to at the end of the game. Tyson was my winner pick, and now he's been voted out twice. So he should Underwood his way back and win the game. So then I will just be so happy. But he is voted out again. Like we've mentioned, a lot of this episode was based around the family visit. I honestly really like this family visit. Usually I'm not too high up on the family visits because they sort of get repetitive, but with this family visit, it was just so cute because there was so many people's storylines that came full circle, and haha, cliche, that was the title of the episode, but just seeing the stories of people who have, never had a family visit before, or their partner was on a Survivor season before also, or like they met because of Survivor kind of thing, or like, they were pregnant with the child in the first time and now the child is walking this time. It's so crazy, and I thought it was so cool to see.
Yeah, and I think, like, it was nice that they didn't have to compete for the family visit. Like, it always breaks my heart a little to see these people have these, like, joyous reunions and then not be able to, like, go be with their, like, person. And especially because they brought kids out this time, like, if they had made people compete and then the kids would have been so sad. And it was just nice that, like, everyone got a family visit, and then, like, literally everyone. Like, they even had a family visit, like, on Edge. And I had this whole conversation with Rachel about what would have happened if Rob and Amber had been separate at this point in the game. Because it's like, are they gonna, like, separate their daughters, or
Daughters go to the actual game and then daughters go to the edge of extinction.
yeah. I mean, I guess we don't have any proof that the two visits happened on the same day. So
Mm. Yeah, I seeing the Edge one was honestly, I thought, cooler than seeing the actual game one. And yeah, I was glad that they didn't have to do a challenge, because imagine you were there and the kid's just flown for however many hours it takes to get to Fiji, and you're gonna tell this like toddler that they can not have a lot of time with their parent. They probably don't even understand what's happening, and they were just like put on the plane and they just know that they're going to see their parent. But then if they only get 2 minutes with their parent, that would just be so sad that they flew so far and didn't even have any time with their parents. So I really like the beach scenes of everyone's kids playing together after. That was so cute. Like, I would just want to watch that for the whole hour. It was so cute.
yeah, and I think also just like it was really I got really warm and fuzzy because the whole reason why the kids were on was because of Tyson. Like, he fought really hard to, like, have his daughter be able to come and see him, because he told Jeff basically, like, if you want to get a reaction from me, you're only going to get
Mm-hmm.
a reaction from me from her. And so, like, I was really happy that Tyson got to see that, like, got to see his kid, because it would have been kind of depressing if, yeah.
Yeah. So I think a lot of people on the internet are talking about this now, but I think it is something that is notable to bring up: the family versus the non-family contestants left in the game. And I think this is something that Alyssa and I brought up preseason when we were talking about it, because we just noticed that everyone on this cast has kids besides like 5 or 6 of the castaways. And so, especially after this family visit, and meeting these people's kids, we see Sarah say something along the lines of, like, my kid is playing with the enemy, but that's okay because today is a fun day. It's like, you met these people's families and kids, and if some of these people without kids go to the end with people with kids, I just don't know how you're going to win against that unless you played some bomb ass game. But I think just seeing that kid and getting that reaction, and just these people are probably talking about their kids 24/7, and then putting a name to a face is going to be a big deal come final tribal council. And I just don't see how someone like Sophie, Michele, Nick, the kidless people left in the game, not necessarily single, but kidless people, how they would win against someone like Jeremy, even if, say, Jeremy plays a bad game the rest of the game and he would be, a 0 vote finalist. I don't know. You met his 4 kids. How could you not say yes to that, even if someone plays a very, very bad game versus a kidless person who is younger?
Yeah, I think it's just like, to what degree do you let outside influences of the game affect your voting in game? Because,
Yeah.
like, there are people who say, like, oh, Jeremy only won Game Changers because he brought up his wife having a baby boy. Adam only won Millennials
Millennials
versus
versus
Gen X. Oof. Because he had his whole sob story about his mom, and it's like, we can't say for sure that that's the reason that they won, but I think it would be naive to say that outside influences don't affect how people vote. So,
Yeah, so I think that will be interesting because in the secret scene that was posted, Michelle does take note the fact that only 3 people don't have kids, and she sees that all of the kids are playing together and she just can't relate because she doesn't have the same experiences as the parents are going through. So she does notice. So I wonder if this will play a factor in someone like Sophie going to the end, and if she thinks that she needs to go to end with the kidless people. I think for Nick and Michele and Sophie, they maybe should start thinking about that and maybe putting a side alliance together as like a backup plan or something, just in case. You know, you can never have too many plans, but I think we just didn't see a lot on this episode, and I'm still salty about that.
yeah, I really hope that next episode they start actually giving us strategic content again, because otherwise it's gonna get hard to watch because I like to know what's happening.
Yeah, if we get strategic content, maybe some flashbacks next week for this week, I will be a very happy person. If we don't get any flashbacks, like why did Michele vote the way she did, I will sort of be a little bit angry because Michele did have such a pivotal role, it seemed, in the vote split working correctly, because it did not make sense. Because a 4-3-2, Sophie would have went home if Kim played the idol correctly. There's no way of knowing that Michele was in on the plan 100%. Why didn't we see a confessional from Michele or Nick saying that they were double agenting? Like, how did this vote split become the 5-2-2? Because it could have went very wrong if Kim played the idol correctly.
Yeah. So let us know in the comments down below if you guys have like opinions. Do you agree with our theory that there was an unaired vote? Is there something that Rachel and I both missed that you think makes this entire episode make sense? How do you feel about Tyson being told that he has to go to the edge again? So we love to hear from you guys, and we're super excited to read your comments. And yeah, we'll see you guys